This is an ongoing case which was originally triggered when the dismembered remains of a female were found stuffed in suitcases floating in multiple directions across the intracoastal waterway in Delray Beach in the USA. From this point, investigations commenced because when the eyewitness called it in, it wasn't clear from the onset who was responsible or even who this victim was. So the Delray police had a lot of work to do, and rightly so. That is what they are there for, and they stood up to the challenge. It took a lot of doing. It took a lot of underground work. They reached out to residents of the Delray community to also resort to footages from their various installed CCTV cameras, web ring, bell, door cameras, and all, just to give them a chance of being able to get some clues to point them in the right direction. And these things, coupled with the extensive police investigations, eventually paid off. And on the 2nd of August 2023, the police arrested the husband of this woman who had now been identified. When the dismembered bodies were brought back from shore, police got to work. They were able to eventually put together a composite sketch of what the victim would look like and the age range, which was somewhere within the 30s into the late 50s. That was the projected age range of this victim. Eventually, they were able to narrow down to identify this dismembered female victim as none other than a woman by name Edil Barbosa Fuentes. Now, after this, several investigations went on with the assistance of the general public, relying on various footages and also certain testimonies which are yet to be disclosed. And on the 7th of August, it eventually led to the arrest of a key suspect in the case. This key suspect is none other than the husband of Edel Barbosa Fuentes, who goes by the name William Lowe. Now, William Lowe is 78 years old and he was arrested just this Wednesday and has been charged with first degree murder and abusing a dead body in the killing of his 80-year-old wife, Edel Barbosa Fuentes. The Delray Beach police officials were expected to announce the arrest at a news conference, and they actually did. So, like I said, Fuentes' remains were discovered on the 21st of July after police said they received a 911 call of a suspicious item in the water along the intracoastal waterway near the 1000 block of Palm Trail. Now, the police actually followed up on this, and when they arrived, they said that they found a suitcase with human remains hanging out of it. I don't think that is how the suitcase was originally disposed of. I think that the person who disposed of it probably sealed it properly, but water has its own strength. So I'm sure the current and the waves crashing the suitcase eventually got parts of it open, and that's how come some parts of the human remains were sticking out. And I think it worked together for good because that's what drew the attention to it. I think so. Now, when the officers arrived, they, they found the suitcase, and according to the arrest report, the suitcase was weighed down with landscaping rocks and had an airport barcode sticker for Latam Airlines with the name Barbosa. So I don't think that the person who disposed of this suitcase actually intended for it to float. It's obvious they didn't want it to be found, but I think they also intended for it to sink to the bottom of that river because they had rocks in there. And the essence of that, obviously, is to make it sink. But unfortunately for them, that didn't happen. A short time later, two other suitcases were found also containing human remains at nearby locations along that intracoastal waterway. So the dots were adding up now. It was becoming evident that Obviously, looking at the size of the suitcase and the human remains per each of them, you would know that this would be the summation. The three suitcases' contents would be the accumulation, making up one person. So it was obvious somebody was trying so hard to dispose of a body using this waterway, but intending for all these three suitcases to sink because they were found in a similar pattern with rocks. Now, inside the bag was a woman's head that had a gunshot wound. So it was then obviously clear too that this person had been shot in the head. But what police needed to establish from this point was whether the person was shot in the head before being dismembered, in which case it's more likely the shot to the head would have been the cause of death, or whether the shot to the head came after the dismemberment, which I don't think would make any sense. So it was more likely that this person might probably have had her life taken as a result of a gunshot to the head and then dismembered as a way of getting rid of the body without anybody noticing. A purse was also found in the waterway with the same type of twine and contained an ashtray that may have been used as a weight and had a decomposition order. Sorry. Investigators had been trying to identify the woman, and eventually they got to establish that there is this composite art that they put together, which they try to establish her age and what she would have looked like, looking at the fact that she had been dismembered. They also released pictures of the two of the three suitcases that had contained various parts of her body. Now, investigators used dental records to identify the remains of Fuentes, and detectives believed from this point that the suitcases were placed in the water sometime between the 17th of July and 20th of July 2023. Residents who lived along the waterway reported seeing a man who appeared to be looking at one of the floating suitcases on 20th of July. A witness asked this man what he was looking at, and allegedly, the man told him that he was waiting for the big boat to come into the harbor. The man, according to them, appeared nervous and immediately walked over to his car, which was an older model gold sedan, entered the car, and left the area. Another witness had seen a man enter the waterway using a dock ladder and said he appeared to be pushing something in the waterway. Surveillance video from nearby showed a man climbing on the dock ladder twice on the 20th of July. Investigators also found blood on a dock ladder near where one of the suitcases was discovered. Now, three roof workers said they had also seen a man on the 21st of July who was standing on the seawall looking at the suitcase and heard him say the SHIT word, I wouldn't want to pronounce it, before getting into his car and leaving the scene. The witness had also had one thing in common, actually, all the witnesses, and it's that they described the man's car as a gold sedan or a Ford, and a detective was able to locate a gold Ford Taurus nearby. Now, when the detective ran the plates of this Ford Taurus, they came back belonging to Lowe and the apartment he shares with Fontes. So I think this is going to be an open and shut case because the investigations didn't really take long to just head in a direction that seems like it might be the right direction. Lowe was questioned by detectives on the 31st of July and said that Fuentes was in Brazil and said she had been there about 3 weeks ago. But he said he didn't know how she got to the airport, which airline she flew, or the last time he spoke with her. That same day, detectives executed a search warrant at the couple's apartment and found blood spatter throughout the living room, dining hallway, dining room, both bathrooms, and the master bedroom. Blood was also detected in the master bath shower drain and tube of the second bathroom, and detectives found drag marks and a large amount of blood in the living room, dining room, and master bedroom. Now, cleaning supplies containing blood spatter were also found, as well as a 9 millimeter firearm. So, I think this was the kill room. The whole house or the whole apartment was a kill zone. And you could tell that whoever is responsible was not a pro. I'm not saying that Lowe was not a pro because, in the eyes of the law, he's actually innocent until proven guilty beyond reasonable doubt, for that matter. So I tread cautiously when I say that. So it was obvious that whoever committed this crime, he didn't expect that they would trace it back to that house or that apartment that soon. Maybe he was going to do the cleaning up of the apartment later. But when the search warrant was executed, it became obvious that the whole apartment was the kill zone. A neighbor told detectives she had recently been hearing Lowe's door open and close in the middle of the night. Another neighbor remembered seeing what she thought was a trail of soup leading from Lowe's door through the hallway and up to a unit that she said was owned by Lowe's sister. The neighbor said she hadn't seen the sister in over 2 years, possibly three, but would see Lowe enter it on occasion. And when detectives searched that apartment, they found a black cover for a Royby chainsaw and a charger which would be used to charge a battery on the chainsaw, as well as multiple bottles of cleaning supplies. According to the report, the case became even stranger when officers executed one of the search warrants. Lowe climbed in through a back window, telling police that he had just come there to get his phone and the key to a storage unit. That led detectives on Wednesday to execute another search warrant at Lowe's storage unit, where they found a Royby chainsaw that appeared to have blood on the blade, chain, and housing, as well as bone matter, flesh, and human hair in the housing of the chainsaw. Like I said, whoever did this crime wasn't smart, and per what was being linked to Lowe, if it's him, it's obvious he probably did it in the spur of the moment and didn't think anything through. But that is good news for the society, that's good news for the police, and that's good news, especially for the victim, that although she had lost her life, he was also careless enough to get caught. Investigators also found a small Coleman cooler that had red marks and stains. Now, at a news conference, the Delray Beach Police Chief Ras Maga told investigators that they had done a good job and that they had worked around the clock to solve the heinous crime. Lead detective Mike Liberta also said that the police don't know the motive for the killing exactly, since Lowe hired a lawyer and stopped talking. He was also asked to compare the crime to others he's handheld. And in that, he said that this is probably the worst that he had ever seen. Comparing the case to what he has handled before, this case tops the chart of the craziest cases that he has ever handled. Lowe currently is being held without bond as of Thursday, just this ended Thursday, and we are looking to see how the case will progress. But it turns out that these guys have been married for close to 20 years. So it begs the question that what would then be the motive? If Lowe is the one responsible, what would be his motive in this case? Is it over money? Is it over something else? I'm sure that the investigation is going to establish it. Although, as it stands now, every evidence that has been picked seems to be pointing to Lowe as the key suspect in the seeming murder of Fuentes. There are also witnesses who have said they saw a man, they saw a man, they saw a man, they saw a car. The car has already been tied to Lowe, but we are waiting for witnesses to also corroborate that he is the man that they saw. William Lowe is in for a very bumpy ride. And looking at the fact that he's already old in age, I don't think he's going to come back from this. Looking at what he may have done, if he's found guilty at the age of 78 years, I think he's going to probably spend his last days in prison. Unless, of course, he's not found guilty and he's acquitted and discharged, in which case he may continue on to live his life. But I don't know, some way, somehow, looking at the evidence stacked against him and the charges leveled against him and the confidence of investigators and the police, in this case, that he is most likely the one who perpetrated it, I don't think that he may come out clean in this case. What do you think the motive would be if it turns out that it is William Lowe who actually ended the life of his 80-year-old wife? What do you think his motive was? Do you believe that there is something that could have drove him to this point? And looking at what they found in the house, the apartment that the couple shared, you would see that this was an intense situation. And I'm also wondering how he could have used the chainsaw without anybody knowing. I just don't get it. I'm sure that since this is a new case, other details may come up as the case evolves. Other people may step up to give other forms of things that they may have heard but have not yet shared with the police, because a chainsaw is that loud. So in a neighborhood, if somebody even fires a gun in the first place, that gun is supposed to send off some sound that people would know. Unless maybe it's also established later that William Lowe might have used a silencer on the pistol. But that has not yet been established. Although I'm expecting that even with that, maybe there should be some noise. Because Adel Barbosa Fontes' murder, although she has been found, and it looks like the key suspect is also in custody, I think we need to be able to establish the root cause. And people would also help greatly if they pay attention to their surroundings, actually. This is not to blame anybody, but I think that sometimes things are overlooked because people just don't want to think anything negative for any other person because they presume that people are what they see them to be, forgetting that serious and heinous crimes like this are almost always committed by seemingly regular people. So it behoves on everybody to keep an eye out. You might even be friends with the person, but just keep a little thought in your mind that some people can do certain things. So if something seems odd, probe a bit, escalate a bit, keep an eye out, just don't write it off. That trail of soup might probably end up being a trail of blood, which may have dried or may have changed color or substance by virtue of other factors affecting it. This is just my 2 cents. And I'm happy with the work the police have done. They were swift, they didn't take the 911 call for granted. They moved in and they did the work. And it looks like they have done a great job. We are now waiting for the case to start in court, which is where the bigger battle will be, because sometimes even the evidence might stack up, but then the method leading up to that point could also present a flaw, which might present a loophole through which somebody who may actually have been guilty of the crime to escape. So the cases, when they get to court, can be tricky. And I'm trusting that the police did an excellent job, and prosecutors are also going to present a tight case. I'll be following this case. I'll give you updates as and when they are due. Until then, subscribe if you haven't yet done so. We'll catch you next time. And like I said, keep an eye out and stay safe out there.